Hello everyone. Today's talk will carry us into the realm of the abstract to see what we can do with it. And the title of the talk is Opening to Realms of Abstraction. When we look at reality, we find many things present, simply here. When something is here, just like you are, like for example, when another human being is here, it's as if they are as much of a creator as you are, right? So you must value the same amount of vision you see in yourself and the ability of another human being to have that vision. You know, that's simply how the concept of teachings has ever meant something. You see, the student of life begins to perceive that conception originates with what he is choosing to see. And what he is choosing to see is kind of chosen because it's like you're seeing that tree that's there, right? But reality is also present. Now, abstraction begins when we have comfortably acknowledged ourselves sitting on a bench in a park. You know? So when we're sitting down, we begin to just take deep breaths and feel our place. You know, sitting down, it doesn't really matter what you sit on. It's simply just when you're sitting, you're feeling your positioning, your orientation, and how it's all here. As the immediate reality, which is our physicality, which is here confronted here, the advanced communicators, the pilot of consciousness, will begin seeing that instead of moving in individual external realities, to see the whole reality simply and to keep, how would I say it, in a simplified sphere of knowing all complex visions and worlds. So what that means is, like, in a simultaneous sense of confronting existence and reality, you begin seeing that it doesn't matter which presence is in which reality. It's all about the intelligence that is the observer, that is the knowing that existence is present. Once you know this, there's no greater understanding. To be honest, you think books have the greatest secrets. You know, we are looking for ancient books. No. To be honest, we're looking for man's ability to get in touch with all that is. Simply it. So you're considering yourself an individuation, you look around, you wake up, you pull the curtains in the morning, and gosh, there's a whole world outside. So you gotta leave your sense of home to experience and find a greater self-awareness that will make every moment your home. You need to be attentive to experience. So even that boring experience perhaps was even useful. You know, you need to contemplate calmly in the sense that you are seeing what is existing and what is real. What is real has many dimensions in the sense that there are certain things that are real to others. For example, I'm talking right now and these words are real to you. However, there's some aspects which are my own experience. Think of, like, for example, or even someone who is a skydiver. Imagine that guy who's falling in the skydive. He cannot communicate the whole experience, but other than say it's like as if you were floating beside clouds. You know, so you begin to see that without your engagement, experience will not give you the fruits of its knowledge. You need to have authentic, sincere engagement. Don't waste any time trying to figure something out. Instead, observe that something. Take the sum away and see what things are for you. See what existence is. Because if we are experiencing man's mind in a multidimensional way, in other words, once we're seeing that there is the presence of a multidimensional nature in how existence and creation flows, all that we can do is every human being, 8 billion people, to begin communicating very authentically, very sincerely, and aligning very respectfully to the environment that they exist in. Your pride shouldn't just be in one country, you know. Your pride should be for your moment of being. Wherever you go, that moment should be cherished. So in other words, there is no criminal actions because you are not in that realm. You walk peacefully and there is peace. And if there is not peace, you will confront that lack of peacefulness and you will see that if your sense of peace is elusive, you will break. But if your sense of peace is authentic, it comes from your essence, it comes from your formless knowing, from your omniscient knowing. You begin to see that an individual who knows its collective is never afraid of any individuality. And So the lion always knows its roar. Your presence is an accumulation of how your memory presents imagery to you, but even that is not so linear. Even that person trying to remember that, let's say, exam question, the answer to that test, to that answer to any test ever made by man, was in a sense working with nonlinearity, because you got to non-linearly bring those linear objects of thought into your remembrance, into your, let's say, sphere of knowing. So what that means is, let's say you've learned something, now they're asking you, what happens is you're going looking for that objective experience. But instead, if you receive knowledge in a very subtle way, in a way where it's not objective. For example, learning is not an objective thing. It's just an experiential thing, and in an instant you can know anything. You begin to see that how man has confronted himself has been showing his ability. And so simply we need to confront man beyond his image. We should not be scared of insanity and hide it in a box. We should observe human psychology and learn from its actions. We must not try to bring old solutions. So what that means is, even though some old ideology is very purposeful, for example, religions are in a sense old ideology, but they're ideology that has been kept lit by man. There's a reason. There's still people following these things. And it's not even people, it's just how life is presenting itself. It's just how that guy feels in the morning based on how he's aware of ideology. You must not try to make yourself different from others, because if you do, you will get error. You must not try to bring more variables in an elusive world. Because if you create variables in an elusive world, you're forgetting the clarity that you are. It's as if you're not checking to see what you have. So there's this story of this homeless guy sitting on a box, and this homeless guy's been asking everybody, and everyone's been giving him, change here and then. And one day, some guy comes and asks him. The homeless guy's been sitting on the same box for years, let's say, for years in the same box, same cubicle. So he's been sitting in the same box, and suddenly he sees that some guy comes up to this homeless guy and says, "Hey man, what's inside that box? If you look under that box," that guy's just like as curious. And the homeless guy's like, "No." And he opens it and he sees, God, there was a stack full of cash. And because this is a story, and this is, of course, the work of abstraction, we see that you have things that you have not looked at, and that is why you feel that you're confused. It's like you know yourself, but it's not being applied completely. So what's wrong? Maybe a lack of observance. You need to observe yourself deeply, in the sense that you give yourself a moment throughout your day to go in nature, to go around natural life, to an open space where you can see the limitless sky, you can see nature. And to sit there and in your stillness and silence and calm of just being alive. You're just observing how you're alive. And being a direct experience of your being. And in that moment, you will see that the nature that is within everything that is gently progressing is within you. Nature is never late. And do not think that just because some deadlines are not being completed, that you're lost. We are all lost to the coffin, it seems. But we need to become more clear. We need to become so existentially aware that we are present in new bodies of ideology. So humankind is not progressing as fast as it can, and that is because it is not working with abstraction. It is only acknowledging it, okay, this is art, it doesn't mean anything, but it can mean a lot of things. So that's kind of ridiculous, because it seems that some aspect of our minds are chaotically wanting to change, and so the artist is going into very intense states of, it's as if like the same artist that was drawing a very intense painting was having the same intensity as that shaman and same engagement in life. And so there's that sense of selfless just reception and expression, which the artist brings out his greatest work on the canvas. And at the same time, there are beings who are limiting that creativity. So in other words, it's as if like if this was a human family, one child is experiencing let's say nature, and another child is just sitting at home. It's like, there's no nature. I'm pretty sure this house is what I'm looking at, and it's what here. Of course the house is what you're looking at, because that's how much you're engaged. The minute you take the ideology that science gives and you blend it into an integrative mind that fractally sees nature present within everything, your allowance and tolerance to be alive will provide you with an unspeakable experience that you have known yourself, and gosh, why forget? We need to have a civilization that is, and when the time of death is coming. So let's say it like this: the physical body, it is said, it is suggested, based on, let's say, the mainstream, that you grow to 30, and after the ages of 30, your body begins to not grow as much, and you begin getting old and you die. So we see the process of life. It grows to a point, cultivates, and then it ends, right? So visualize, it goes up a peak and then comes down a peak. So since our birth right now, a lot of the youth are going up the peak, and so they're like, oh gosh, they're going up the peak. I can see the limitless sky. I'm gonna be infinite, YOLO, you know. And so they're not sensitive to the whole mountain. They're not sensitive to the climb. Now, however, in this moment where you are going from your birth, you see that your mind is going. It's as if your youth is creating the greatest experiences which you need to observe in your old life, right? In your elder years. So similarly, let us just follow with this and kind of go in the framework that you are born, and what is valuable for you is the quality of your experience, not the quantity of objects that are around you. You can have a lot of money, but if you have no idea how to even experience that money or where that money came from, similar to that same tale where you don't know if you've earned it or not, you know, you will not utilize the abundance you get. You want authentic utilization of your abundance. You want to look at your life and be like, it's so meaningful that how am I questioning it? How am I allowing myself to be depressed and not utilizing this beautiful information to creating the greatest work of life, which is going to be man's greatest action? Communicate in integrative and compassionate words. It's about time to go beyond time and space. So civilization needs to go similar to as it's climbing up that mountain, and you need to build momentum from your birth. Excitement, excitement, excitement. And you need to build so much excitement and existential awareness that that moment when your body is going in decay, you have confronted infinite realms of just subjective change. And as that moment comes, you walk beyond the clouds of thought. So when you're getting to your youth years, you must immediately be disengaging with thought, not in a way that you're not thinking, not in a way that you're suddenly not nobody, just in the way that you as a being wake up in the morning and are just paying more attention to how life is being lived and to how you have lived. And so there is no doubt when you are a selfless observance of the moment, do you know? It's as if we have clear paths, and these paths are made useful and workable by our understanding, not anyone's understanding. So regardless even how much Mr.Within can explain to you a certain idea and open it in many ways, it is your awareness to the words. It is your awareness to the sound that is coming in. And guys, it's crazy because media changes your orientation. It does not just provide you with information that's unnecessary and, you don't need so many ads on pharmaceuticals. You just need to simply see that the cure was your attention to the problem and why it was there. Sometimes many problems are simply handled by the awareness of the being to the harmony, to the flow of the life they're living in. You have lived in a certain way. Your family has provided you, or your environment in your immediate years has provided you with a certain imagery. Do not devalue this imagery. Do not try to compare this imagery to too much cultural shenanigans. Culture is a playful thing which you can contribute. So take it, be playful. In other words, imagine you're like, in a sense, how do I say it? You are playing chess with culture. It's a game. Do not take it so seriously. Take what you should take seriously is your direct experience of life. In other words, sometimes I even go into realms of deep thought where it's so deep that I'm like, gosh, I'm forgetting that I need to, be somewhere. So that is simply playfulness. It is not guilt. It is not wrong. It is not some kind of delusion where you're caught in a deceptive realm. Everything that you choose is basking in your awareness. Your awareness is holding everything you're aware of. So everything that is known is keeping the individuality that can even compare itself to something to be known. So that awareness is transcendental. And so perhaps a man long time ago said, try transcendental meditation, and people are like, what do you mean try transcendental meditation? What does even transcendence mean? And you saw that what he meant was that go into direct experience with life. Do not constantly read about it and not be experiencing it. It's similar to the problem a lot of engineers face nowadays where These engineers are mechanical engineers. You're being taught in school many things, and at the end you realize, gosh, it's only your experience and how you communicate with life that really matters how you thrive in the workspace. So if I was a CEO and if I was to see engineers come in, which engineer was dedicated to the design of the company? Right? And so there's a lack of creativity there, but also an ability to work in a newer sense of dimension. That is why people who work have sometimes the work ethic is giving them the balance. The fact that when they come in a situation where laziness comes, they're like, I don't have time to not serve my greatest vision. And it's not something, to be honest, to also take it to a point where you're too worried about. Be very playful again, because in playfulness your reception is vast. Your reception is comfortable with what is present. The moment you become comfortable with the reality you are, that is here, immediately in an instant, infinite realms will open to you. Trust me, it goes in an instant. Similar to how you move into a portal, let's say, we have the concept of a portal, go from one dimension to another dimension. Don't think that the movement to the other dimension is like this. It's not an idea going into a nicer idea. It's an idea going into a formless observance that is simultaneously present. So time and space are no longer chronological in regards to your experience. Time is no longer moving directions. It is all simultaneously present. And so your knowing is the stillness and silence of the cosmos among any noise. So suddenly you get an existential responsibility for all noise. So suddenly if someone speaks back to someone else, it bothers me as well. If someone devalues another human being in communication, it bothers me. It's like the minute you become aware of the forms of communication, you have become aware of the communication that is. You're just aware of it. You're present. Once you see someone open a door, you're like, oh gosh, that's a door. That's how a door works. That's how you learn. And so in your learning, you're never told to keep your imagery stagnant. The mind should be running as free as it can, and your externality is slowly following behind. The physical body, and perhaps even, I might say for now, even your idea of you is kind of, it's like the father, and the child is your internal vision that is infinitely experiencing everything simultaneously. You think you don't know what's going on. You tune into the fabric of reality and you see the way it's weaved it's as if the golden ratio was spiraling into itself, both in and out. Every sense of change created in a dynamic where individuality can be considered is a chaotic emanation of a greatness beyond what man can conceive. So man's direct experience goes into the unknown to be something he's never experienced before. So it is the unknown that, in a sense, refines your knowing. And so if you have lost a feeling of the unknown, if you've become arrogant, if you think you're not the president of a country, but you're the president of every person, you are losing yourself in an illusion that is taking away from your existential clarity that is always present. There's no need for the individual to think that he's lost in his collective being. You exist, and so does everything else. And so how could the brothers of existence not be present? How could the sisters of existence not be present? How could any being in existence not be present? Be compassionate and learn from every experience you've ever experienced in an instant. Do not delay. Do not think you need to go to school for years. Give yourself the ability and just go fill it up at times with external, external information if need be. It is up to you to discover the multidimensionality of your nature of being. And that is the thing. Because people are giving you solutions when you don't need it. Because there has been a ridiculous creation of unnecessary problems in this life where people are trying to solve, It's like that person is trying to find his keys, but his car has no gas, So it's like very important we bring our clarity and make it the present moment, and from the present moment dissolve into greater experiences of our own understanding. Self-communication is really how existence is kept. Because the unknown and known is that self-communication. Is that we need emptiness to even experience and understand new ideas. We need a sense of complete space where a human being can come And he gives this talk, and it's irrelevant to what we know. The guy could speak as if he's from another world, and it's beautiful artwork that needs to be studied because it's what's been communicated. We are taking so many creations unacknowledged. Do you know how many people there are in third world countries, in countries that there's no platform of social communication or globalized communication, and in their silence they're observing the workings of God. And when I say the workings of God, it is not an image, it is the collective intelligence that is this existence. It is how the universe is a multiverse the moment you become the universe. The moment we take this fractal representation that we can think of new ideas, that novelty can be experienced through even galactic presences, in the sense that you are not being an alien, you are the experience of the cosmos, you are that galaxy. Andromeda never had a name, but you always heard her. You know, it's because realities are present in many ways, and we must have an ability to keep a level of clarity. You don't want to also go too insane with these ideas. You don't want to suddenly say, oh my God, I'm not this, I'm Superman, and just acting like Superman and wearing a cape. You know, you want to be an observer. You are learning from life, and you're learning through your silence and stillness. Because the minute you begin communicating noise and telling someone that you know something, you will see that, gosh, the silence after seems to know a bit more. I hope that you see reality is here to show you your presence. And your presence is beyond your personality, and so be compassionate to everyone. Because I heard somewhere, it was a very profound quote that said, everyone's fighting a battle, their own battle. You know, everyone has their own realities to confront. That old person might be having the profoundest experiences, but just can't communicate it. You know, that young person might be having experiences that are so multidimensional, and just when he simply comes back to the dinner table, he can't say anything. And so it's as if the silence keeps the beauty of the unseen. And so you learning from silence is the most important, perhaps, action in this reality. As the end deteriorates in the forms that you thought it had to be, you begin seeing, as you observe your memory throughout the day, as you go to deep self-contemplative states and you just sit still and observe and learn from nature, you begin acknowledging all the ideas you had ever right now. You can do that, you know, and as you do that, you begin seeing how much knowledge was in the knowledge that you already knew. In every word that you spoke, how many deeper meanings was there if you just adjusted your existential sensitivity? If you suddenly realize there's no need to hold a sword when it is the gentleness of life that gives you the wisdom that preserves. Regardless of the cause and effect dynamic we find ourselves, your experience is the observer of the cause and effect dynamic. And that observance is in an instant that is unspeakable, and in which many poets have just very playfully traveled to. It's very important, guys. This is life we're talking about. This is what you are as a being we're talking about. You know, it's no longer, oh man, that guy had nice ideas, this guy had nice, and oh, the Gandhi did some good stuff, yay, nice, good job, Gandhi. No, it's serious acknowledgement that, oh my God, who am I that's here? Be that authentic with yourself to see that, gosh, I don't know who I am. I need to explore. I need to begin co-creating with my sense of observance. So what that means is it's like the object of observance realizing more of the observer in every act, in every movement, in every fluctuation. You can learn of the flow of your experience and what's coming because you created on something. Something that perhaps has been very unspeakable for many seers to say is that the seer is going towards an understanding understanding where it's no longer, again, segmented senses of time and space, but it is a simultaneous one. Simultaneous one means that there is no separation, but separation is kept. So it's as if we are basking in the light of, in greater lights. And as we are, and as you are preserved that way, you will see that how you are associating with the existential intelligence that you are is, in a sense, the world and the worlds that are communicated. So you must see that the seer knew that his opening, the fact that the seer was giving and going into that moment of revelation, and this is not simply for any seer, this is, I would very refer for, if you were interested in the concept of seers, go see what ancient Vedic literature has to say about it. That is a very, and any profound culture has, of course, much wisdom on seers. But again, the way I'm saying it is that the seer suddenly sees that in a simple occurrence, for example, one wind hitting it, or one leaf falling down, or suddenly that bird being in that position, or suddenly that thing happening in that certain way, was giving the confirmation that the revelation was already there. So the fact that an individual dissolved to bring collective knowing into an individual form was a co-creation. So it's as if that moment you went into the portal, you're forgetting, regardless of the dimensions, you are an intelligence that's between them. You know, you are that moment where you're passing from different realms of understanding and self-acknowledgement. Existence is becoming an experiential thing for you. The value of your experience is becoming more important than the value of your sight. Sometimes we can see something and not experience it. I could, of course, Google a picture of the Himalayas and observe it, but it's not giving me the experience of it. So for example, going there, wow, what a profound experience. Similarly, with any act you do, if you're just basing it on the imagery, if you're basing the laws on truth, it is an unhealthy creation in the environment. In your environment, and in a sense, your environment in which your thought of self is originating from. Because if you don't have good imagery in your mind, don't think that that imagery is just going to go away, because it's being kept by you. And so if you do not confront, if you think ideas are yours, if you're not aware that ideas are just present, you know, then you will be caught in creating yourself in a dynamic where you think you are just an objective idea. Your experience is beyond what is experiencing, because that is the nature of transcendence. That is the nature of evolution. Some aspect of your intelligence is moving beyond itself. And as it does, now is the time for man to realize, gosh, it's not physical. We're not turning into, like, you know, let's say, more interestingly standing beings. Do you know what I mean? You know, we are acknowledging ourselves in our multidimensionality. It's as if we are a physical species who's began and suddenly in its physicality is moving in this reality and has given itself the ability to create a stable sense of time. So in other words, right now the culture we have is so sufficient for a sense of greater self-awareness. You know, and so you see that it's as if we can utilize our culture and imagery to create an individuality among our physicality that begins to go as an observance. So in other words, it's as if that moment where you're running up the mountain, you're reaching the peak, it's like you're not just there, you dissolve into the sky. The limitation dissolves into the limitless. You begin to see that your whole life you've been utilizing your physical observance and your sense of subjective observance, and now you need to become aware of both of these before a sense of deconstruction. And this is not in a sense there's something to be late. It's just that it's a very good suggestion that during your time in this physical life process, that you are a being who's been experiencing things, and you're perhaps experiencing things that nobody can even know anything about, right? So do not think that you are less, but in a sense see that all ideas of self are less. My ideas, all of them, that I'm individuating to make it more valuable is less. It's just the ability of our observance that is the great teaching here. So the presence of the communication is more important than the content we're interpreting from the image that we see. And so sometimes you will see that you will be present and you will do things that will contribute to mankind in such nice ways, where it's as if your smile is an internal smile. Your face might not even have an expression. You might help someone and you might just be so dull. But internally, it's as if you're smiling with the cosmos simply because you were aware of the action that you did. No man deserves to be imprisoned in a certain ideology of how mankind should be. It's not that we should just develop systems that have a greater ability in confronting individuality, but also allowing that individuality to be many things. What that means is for example, gosh, our culture has been making people think that as they're aging, their ability is decreasing. No, you know, it's very important to have existential sensitivity. And so when you reach that point in your life where you see that you have lived well, or you just see that you know that you have lived, it is time to very gracefully and playfully walk into the temple of your being. It's time to observe existence comfortably and to acknowledge the self more than an idea, and to simply see what a good life means. For you, not for anyone else. Because you are working with the experiences you are currently having now to learn from the quality that is there and how you can update that system. It's as if you are creating with your intentions a new modality into maintaining your reality. And at first it looks like a creation, but then you will see that how that creation is kept. In other words, I'm pretty sure many bright minds on this plane have recognized that their greatest work, for example, the greatest inventions, was being carried also by the interest of others. So what that means is we are connected in ways where I could be like somewhere around the world against, totally distant from you. I could be totally distant from you. We can have all those people in different countries. Suddenly, if one person, let's say suddenly you invented something, and your amplification, your understanding, you doing that, it's as if people were attentive to your moment of being. You will see suddenly some farmer in China will suddenly turn around his head as if something's happened. Nobody knows, but you've invented something, for example. We are connected in profound ways, and we must allow the audience of man to not judge each other. You must not judge the amount of existential observance your friend is, or your fellow human being is. You must learn from compassion and realize the compassion is very efficient because it's giving you an understanding of the observance that you are. It's giving you more understanding of the observer rather than the objects of observance. So sciences and our current academic facilities are teaching us about objects of observance. More spiritual teachings and meditation and just nature and all that, and shamanism and many different paths, are showing more of man as an observer of the object. So an experience of the observer is when you were having fun. And so playfulness takes you from your individuality into that greater dynamic where it's not that you figured out the mystery of life, it's just that you're receiving life in a more knowing way. And knowing that is not based on ideology, so any ideas communicated to you don't bother you. You are kept here. And that is the most profoundest thing that you see in a guru. If you really want to see if the guy is a guru or not, you should not analyze it logically, because he's not here to give you a logical teaching. He's here to shake your reality, right? And so you will see his presence is the allowance for nothing to bother you during that, because he's communicating with you. What that means is many times the gurus, their presence is profound. There was this profound Tibetan guru where they were very conscious beings. That if I will tell you a story right now that you will see, wow, look at how they conducted their physicality. There was a great profound guru in Tibet, and simply I just wanted to explain the imagery of the story. In the sense that this guru was so conscious, and he had, I think, 30 disciples or something, 30 people that were, in a sense, he was co-creating with and learning together, And suddenly, he wakes up and he says, I'll be leaving now. It's as if he knows. He tells all the students to wake up, and he tells all of them to wake up, you know. Suddenly he wakes up all the students, tells them, begin doing everything I've taught you. Just begin doing it, you know. And what he means, that means be your sincere self and acknowledge the present moment. And so as the students are doing that, and they're in their mantras, and they're in their sense of experiencing how their voice is creating a greater collective awareness into how the grid of reality has a sense of sound and geometric simultaneity. But anyways, they are standing there, and the students are all sitting, you know, and they're all in sense of prayer. And so one by one of them goes, and the guru blesses them. And of course, guys, this is my interpretation of these stories. For clear information, definitely check. Just go get a book that really is the one you feel will teach you the greatest amount of this stuff, you know. But anyways, so what happens is they're one by one, they're going to this guru standing there, he's blessing them. He's blessing each one. And he's so conscious that he's realizing that it is time for him to leave his physicality. And so the guru in meditation, or perhaps he was lying down, I don't know, but he leaves his body consciously. And he leaves in a way where all his disciples are aware. Do you see? They're present there. They're not scared. They're not crying. They're not sad. They realize the realities that being had opened up for them, and now that being leaves his, consciously, he leaves his body. And that's why it's been even suggested that the bodies of these gurus that they leave are preserved. It's as if their life force is still in there. It's as if they're beginning their walk into their formless knowing, you know. It's a very beautiful imagery for the eyes of the mystic. And so, similarly, guys, you see that regardless of what culture communicates, if we let culture dictate us, culture could be confused. Culture could be just this guy who's just like, oh, no, you have to be this kind of person. You know, and we're like, what do you know? And culture looks at us, what do I know? And he's like, he doesn't know anything. Everyone's just putting their own influences in it, you know? So it's very, very important that you see that the voice of others, including many of the associations and groups and systems that you're analyzing, and you need to, in a sense, let all your complexity simplify into your current understanding. So you know that you're worried, you're stressed, and you feel the world is about to end, simply just forget about everything and just be present here. Just be alive. That's the simplest thing you can do. If there was an apocalypse, you could just simply be here and just be. Right? So very clearly get comfortable in being and begin cultivating an ability to be regardless of the change, and begin being more self-aware. And perhaps in a future that is already here, we can see that man has taken steps into a greater ability in his self-awareness, and how form comes into manifestation. I hope I communicated that story well. It's a very profound story, and to go read the lineage of these gurus is beautiful. It's as if like they left their knowing through writings, you know, and these writings were passed on, and it's as if realities were kept lit. And so great understanding was preserved, regardless of how many people bash the religious doctrine. If people understood that the multidimensional nature of man opens as his experience, dissolves other into self, you see, when you find Mr. Within, there is no idea there. There is no individuation there. There is a knowing that your presence is here. And here, it's not bound by space and time, so it is not in locality, but you call it here because you were starting from somewhere, right? I'm starting from some reality and dissolving into a sense of emptiness, right? And once you begin to see how all ways are leading to the same way, you begin realizing, wow, the same ability your heart has in always beating so far, you know, is that the rhythms of life are keeping your whole being alive. So you begin not looking just at your heart, you begin looking at the heart of hearts. You begin looking at the heart of existence, the heart of this cosmos. And you begin seeing that it is unknown. And so the being who is aware that his knowing is present within all things, and that is why it's not anywhere that can be found. He will see that it was just a collective acknowledgement that the individual needed, not to find more individuation that will satisfy an individuation that was never individual. And maybe perhaps be the calm and profound ability of that monk who sat under that waterfall and realized that there was never any turbulence, that there was no difference needed. There was no difference in regards to him not being under the waterfall and being under the waterfall, in the sense that his state of being was aware. You know, he was aware of his multidimensional nature. And when I say multidimensional, right now I'm saying it in a way that it's as if like it's more than this dimension, but actually it's an experience of existential intelligence beyond your conception. So don't try to actually give a shape, but try to be very authentic and natural and try to receive your life as clearly as you can, so that when a flow comes in your life, you begin to see how far it leads. It's a moment where you put your finger in the river and just realize where the waterfall is. You know? And so you perhaps become that drop that is smiling like the guru of that monk who's standing under the waterfall, in the sense that the drop hits the monk and it leaves and nothing happens. And so life has understood from itself to remember that it was always more than it thought it was. Let every moment be the profoundest beginning. Much blessings and namaste.